everyone. This is update for February 8, 2023, days 350 of the war and of the date update. So first, let's discuss strategic military topics around Ukraine, and we're gonna walk through the front line. So the first news that was yesterday, and I apologize for not making video for yesterday, but so there was sort of final kind of like approval to sell actually to Ukraine 100, I think 88 Leopard 1 tanks. That's horrific news for Ukraine because it's complete military junk. Hopefully, it will never get to Ukraine, to the front line. The really disgusting part of this is those who give it in the West, they fully realize what it is, what kind of junk it is, and Ukrainian military top knows what it is, and political as well, just because they get consulted, they getting information from the military. So both sides are guilty, and will be, if they get there, ordinary Ukrainians will pay with their lives for all of this, for all of this propaganda shows. It's not worth anything. That's sort of on the sort of bad news side. On the positive news, Challenger 2 tanks from the UK coming in March, which feels not that far away. That's really something. They're going to be 14 of them. At least something that's sort of real, because if you remember, mentioned that Abrams essentially, let's say, coming. Well, I would say not coming, because by the time they come, there will be something in this war. So the final resolution on this war will be achieved probably without them. And then Leopard 2. Looks like some of them are not coming, what was promised. Some coming, so it's also looks like some kind of mess similar to Abrams situation, probably a little bit better, but looks like Ukraine is going to get relatively few units, and it's probably going to be sometime May, April, maybe even June timeline. So not anytime soon. So from all of these big promises, their only real ones essentially is this Challenger 2, which is excellent tool, as I said before, great tank. That's only sort of real, sort of something that's going to be in the hand of Ukrainian military. As I said, I have a lot of reservations about the ability to effectively use it. Nevertheless, at least it's there. Then there is also this tour of Ukrainian president through Europe in order to sort of get even more weapons. So he went to the UK, where he was asking for the military airplanes. Again, similar propaganda-driven sort of approach. I'll explain why. Because Russian Air Force is essentially non-existent, done. The influence on the battlefield, on the outcome right now of the Russian Air Force is close to zero, as low as it gets, essentially. They sit there and basically don't have any effect. When they try to do something, they get shut down, and then they just factually they don't fly. So this is not a sort of threat or anything right now to Ukrainian forces in a meaningful way. At the same time, if Ukraine gets those airplanes, most likely they're going to be sort of fighter airplanes. There's no point of engaging in Russian fighters, because you're not going to achieve anything, essentially. Because Russia, even if Ukraine, again, it's going to be similar to situation with this modern tanks, where Ukraine probably will receive, let's say, 10 airplanes, 5 airplanes. Russia still has a lot of Su-35 And I think they have also this Su-50 or something, the latest and greatest. So it's not gonna, it will be probably one for one exchange, and Ukraine will lose all of that, and again Russia will lose some of theirs, and there is no, um, you know, no real effect on the war. It's not that. It's not like Ukraine will get some airplanes mm, that can change outcome of the war, because Russian anti-air defense system is okay. It's not the best in the world, but it's okay. It will be able to shut down, um, you know, ground attack airplanes, fighter airplanes, all of that. So again, this is mm, just a propaganda and show that misdirects resources in completely wrong direction. So in a way, it's, if you really think, how can you undermine the whole effort? That's what you would do. You would redirect resources from really from the kind of resources that they needed to the resources that are not doing anything. And that's where all of this propaganda driven approach is really doing a lot of harm and essentially no good. But for example, Ukrainian infantry desperately low on any kind of support weapons. By that I mean automatic grenade launchers, um, mortars like 82 millimeter mortars, 120 millimeter mortars. That is really what is needed. Basically, close combat support for the infantry, so they have better chances against the Russian infantry. So there are better chances of stemming advances of Wagner mercenaries, because Wagner mercenaries, one of their tools is mortar. They effectively use it, and they use it, and they manage to advance with the help of mortar fire. So instead of providing all of that what's needed, and by the way, on this topic, there's very clear need for infantry artillery pieces. Basically, whatever was um, in the German army in during World War II, I think it's Infantry Geschütz or something like that. So this is clearly needed, actually, uh, in the army on the battlefield, and I would say on the both sides. The same as assault guns. They totally missing and needed, and there's no movement obviously on the Ukrainian side because, as I said, it's um, corrupt and incompetent top, and luckily for Ukraine, Russian side is the same, is incompetent and corrupt, and so as a result, people on the ground basically they have to pay with their lives for all of this, for this kind of leadership or the top that they have. So this is kind of like a major what's going on again. So essentially, I would say most of it is, um, I would say, on the negative side in terms of it's either Ukraine gets this total military junk, which is Leopard One, and hopefully they don't come and don't materialize, because let's say they're in terrible shape. I wouldn't be surprised. Um, or the resources getting misdirected in totally wrong direction. By the way, on this topic is a similar approach of like, okay, let's rebuild Ukrainian navy. This is like by actually building Ukrainian ships. This just again, absolute waste of resources. Ukraine, you know, even if builds two, three, four, five ships, it's not gonna be enough. The Black Sea will be dominated by the Russian Navy, or at least threatened enough that no Ukrainian Navy will be able to sort of withstand or confront and win Russian Navy. So it just again absolute waste of resources, instead of actually doing actual things on the ground to help infantry, even getting more, those howitzers is much better sort of result, or getting those UAV drones, reorganizing uh, Ukrainian military units in a way that they are effective, that they have embedded UAVs there, just just for the purpose of the unit and the entire unit. So there is a lot of problems, but they are, I would say, they require really a lot of work, and they don't sound as nice for propaganda purposes. So um, political top doesn't want to do it because, okay, it's a lot of work. It's not what politicians do. They don't like any kind of work, where anything that requires real work, um, because they actually the ones who don't work in life. And um, it requires really intelligence and understanding what you need to do, and most of them are completely incompetent in any topic. That's sort of like the hallmark when you become politician. You just don't know anything, and then but you're good at doing propaganda speeches, and so that's what's really happening. Um, then other interesting um, observation is that uh, apparently both sides, or I'd say tops on the board, controlling system on both sides in the military, is getting concerned uh, with the number of voluntary sort of surroundings by the soldiers on both sides. That they basically surrender without any kind of fight, just like, okay, I give up and that's it. On both sides, I want to highlight this. That they starting producing this hmm, video clips where they show either shooting down like the soldiers who surrendered, or saying that they're being, you know, asked to kill anyone who surrenders, so and so on. So basically, it's just to instill fear among the both fighting sides, so they don't surrender to each other essentially. So that's the first sign. This is kind of like a first sign of a crack where both sides are getting tired. I'm not saying that the war stops tomorrow. That's not what I'm saying. It's just the first sign of exhaustion is there. Probably will take some more time before things will really start changing in meaningful way. Um, but the first sign of exhaustion, as I said, is there, and it's very clear. And you can also see that from the how Ukrainian um, defenses, especially North Donbass, they just not holding on well anymore as they used to be. But now let's actually do walks through the front line. Oh, and then sorry, I forgot to. I just want to give specific example how bad Russian um, state finances are, and just generally how bad financially it is there, and it's really getting bad exponentially. So it's with every passing day, months, it gets worse in exponential order. So the collection of the Russian state um, budget or revenues uh, were, I think, like 1.4 trillion Russian rubles, and it's going to be Russian rubles. But the point is not like in actually how many dollars it is. That doesn't. The idea is like to show you the holes. So they collect 1.4 trillion. They believe spend 3.1 or 3.2 trillion. So the actual gap, what they sort of emit, is sort of basically unfunded credit, unfunded money is 1.8. So basically, think about like you spending, you live in a way that like you spend um, more than 2 times what you earn. So this is how, so you understand how bad the situation is in the Russian state budget. And the reasons are two here. Expenses went up by, I think, 55 or 56%. And this is obviously related to war expenses. War is extremely expensive thing, and so um, Russian state budget has to finance all of this, also newly conscripted soldiers and so on. So that's a driver, obviously. And then revenues went down tremendously by, I think, 34 or 40%, but somewhere in that ballpark. Obviously, some of it related to sanctions in terms of Russia not able to sell natural gas. That's the biggest killer there. I mean, it sells, but a small fraction, I think, like, let's say 20 billion or something like that in annual terms, versus they used to sell, let's say, 200, right, at the peak. So you can see that drop is huge. Um, and obviously the price of oil is, not ideal, but it's still, it's right now, I think it's around like $50. And some even claim that they get even 60. Um, so basically the situation is um, very clear, extremely difficult for the Russian sort of state and state budget, uh, and it will force uh, probably more aggressive actions from the Russian side, because they realize they also on a borrowed timeline. I said that they have this reserve fund that they actively using. They selling uh, basically their FX reserves. They even start selling gold. Um, so that will be, enough for some time to plug the hole, but they do realize that they also need to achieve something during that limited time that they have. As I said, it's probably not more than a year, let's say, from now. So let's say by New Year, by let's say New Year 2024, they know that they will be out of resources and things really will start to collapse. And so they need to achieve something. So that's another reason for this potential offensive wherever it's going to happen. Nobody knows, but even those circumstances also push them. So in a way, Russian leadership is getting into a situation where they are not really controlling situation anymore. They have to kind of like do things, because otherwise things is going to get much worse. Um, so now let's actually do walks through the front line. We're gonna do it in a clockwise fashion, starting from very north. So there is quite of aggressive Russian artillery shelling of the Sumy region. This is Sumy region here. So very unclear why, like sort of why and so on, but it's very clear that the the level of activity is very high here. There's also some retaliation from Ukrainian side, some UAV attacks, but that's just never efficient, just propaganda things. But of note is this heavy artillery shelling along the border here in Sumy region. Um, Now let's jump to the North Lugansk front line. So things here are more or less the same, just some Russian attack. Here, an attempt to destroy this tiny bridgehead. Otherwise, situation here is, well, I won't say quiet, but there is no decisive moves here. Let's put underway in this area. This could be, as I said before, potentially area of that discussed offensive, but there is no way to say, well, yeah, that looks like it's going to be here. Now let's move to the North Donbass front line. things here are pretty, let's say, bad for Ukrainian side. They continue to be bad. There's unconfirmed information that Russian troops advance here a little bit, where I'm showing where this white arrow is. Once I have more information, I'll update. I mean, it's not. It's in the whole sort of difficulty of the situation. This is sort of least worst, least critical. Let's actually look what's going on south of Bahmut because things getting really bad there. This is the area. Close look at the Bahmut situation. So the most dangerous situation is here, a little bit north of Bahmut, as I said before. There's this juncture, railroad and regular road juncture here, and so the Russian troops kind of came close here. Don't know if they managed to push over the road here or they kind of being held in check here at this point. But the real problem is south, as you can see. Uh, Russian troops really kind of moving forward and advancing in this mostly western, a little bit northwestern or west-west north direction. So they're getting close towards this road between Konstantinivka and Bahmut. I mean, this road not usable anyways already at this point because they are attacking Ivanivske, which I showed you. It's just essentially 1 kilometer from the road. So this road is essentially out of use for a while. However, the danger of this move is potentially you can really create huge dangerous advance if you really really dangerous penetration for Ukrainian side that really may cause like huge collapse of the front line and really retreat all the way to Slavyansk, which is here, and essentially Konstantinivka with huge losses, with basically kind of like almost turn it into panic. So I'm not saying this is happening at this moment, but this creates that opportunity. Let's put this way. Whether it's going to be sort of utilized, that's another question. But even without that, as you can see, Russian troops are getting, let's say, Wagner mercenaries, to be more precise, are getting closer and closer to this another road. The only road that's really sustaining Ukrainian troops in the Bahmut area, which goes through Chasiv Yar. As you can see, this is this road Chromova Chasiv Yar. This is the one that's sort of the lifeline that provides blood to the troops in this area, and it's becoming more and more threatened. So, as I said that before, it's looks like the fall of Bahmut may happen much sooner than expected. Let's put this way. Now let's move south. Let's see what's going on there on central Donbass front line. So things here are, let's say, active, but without result. And that's again, I will compare and contrast regular Russian army. You know, has a lot of resources, actually more than Wagner mercenaries, but there's no incentives, and there is no competence to use them effectively. So you have sort of a lot of attacks, but nothing to show for them. And actually, I want to mention that what's going on here in for the Russian troops in Vuhledar area is essentially, I would say, if I wouldn't say complete destruction, but significant damage to the 40th and 155th Naval Infantry Brigades. They basically they're getting expanded as we speak, and probably another couple days of the attacks that they're doing, suicidal attacks there in the Vuhledar will lead to the situation when they literally need to be pulled out for refitting, all of that. They will be out of commission for a long time. They already have extremely limited sort of Offensive capability, I would say they close to zero, but they still being pushed to sort of to attack Ukrainian defenses by 72nd Brigade. So far it looks like the whole battle will lead to essential destruction of these two brigades. I'm not saying complete annihilation. They, as I said, explained, they will be probably pulled out from the front line and they're going to be rebuilt. Um, 72nd Brigade also has some losses, so it's not like that everything was easy, but on a relative scale, these two brigades suffered much heavier losses than 72nd. If the whole war was in this fashion, uh, there was no question that Ukraine would win. There would be like, okay, this is just execution. That's all. Unfortunately, this is more of exception than the norm. I mean, you can see what's going on in the North Donbass front line. And then I'll just quickly kind of look at the Zaporizhya front line. So things here are so far quiet. There's no new probing attacks, no nothing to report. But as I said, this could be potentially one of the most dangerous areas for the Russian attack. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.